Well, hello, everyone. For the past several years, you've been hearing more and more about entrepreneurship and innovation from Greater MSP. And that's because entrepreneurship is what created the headquarters economy we have today. And we are betting that entrepreneurship will be the source for a new generation of global companies that are going to solve some of the biggest challenges we face. Twin Cities Startup Week is a really important hub of activity in our region's entrepreneurial ecosystem. It started with humble beginnings in 2014 to become the second largest free entrepreneurial festival in the US. And last year, it had over 17,000 attendees and over 200 events hosted across the region, focused on educating, celebrating, and inspiring problem solvers from Minnesota and across the country. Well, Startup Week is going virtual this year, and it could be more accurately called Twin Cities Startup Month, because it's going to have events happening September 7th through 25th. So today, we are joined by two leaders from MSP startup community, CEO of Civic Eagle, Damola Ogundipe, who is also a Forge North Leadership Council member, and Beta Executive Director, Casey Shultz. Welcome to both of you, and thanks for talking today.
Thanks for having us, Peter.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see you. Casey, tell us about Twin Cities Startup Week. Who participates and how do they do it?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Twin Cities Startup Week is the second largest startup week in the United States. And it's actually one of the most eclectic group of people that I've ever encountered at a week-long festival, which is great. We have everything from startup founders to corporate innovators to investors and all the way down to students who are looking to get inspired on maybe how to become an entrepreneur or how to get their first job in the MSP area.
The student component is really important, and that seems like that's been growing in past years. Damola, as an entrepreneur yourself, can you share your perspective on how you've benefited from Startup Week and what other founders could expect to get out of this experience?
Yeah, I went to the very first Twin Cities Startup Week in 2014, and I can say I don't think I would have started Civic Eagle if not for Twin Cities Startup Week. Founded the company a year later. It was where I learned about things like the Minnesota Cup, resources, where I was able to kind of build community, like learn what other entrepreneurs in the area were doing, that type of thing, built a network. So Twin Cities Startup Week actually has a pretty special place in my heart. And it's exactly what I just described. It's a great place for, regardless of what stage you are in your entrepreneurial journey or your professional journey, there's a network that you can build there. There's a community of people that you can connect with. There's things you can learn. You're not too advanced as an entrepreneur professional to ever stop learning. And you're not too young or too early to start that journey. So Twin Cities Startup Week is just a place where you can come and really build that community with other people.
Well, the community's going to look a little different this year because it will be virtual, but Casey, going virtual provides an opportunity to bring Startup Week to people all over the world. So can you talk to us about a couple activations you're working on with the Greater MSP team, maybe the Twin Cities Fly-In program and the beta backers? Who are we going to be connecting with?
You bring up an excellent point where maybe that's a silver lining of going virtual this year, that we are reaching out to more geographically distant participants, which is great. So the Fly-In program historically has been where we have flown in around 50 highly skilled individuals to come experience Twin Cities Startup Week, experience the Twin Cities area, and connect with companies who are hiring in the hopes that they would actually move here. And I myself am a Fly-In program participant and moved here after participating in the program. This year, we're not limited by the number of people that we can afford to fly in. So we're hoping to have, whereas in the past we've had 50 people, we're hoping to have over 200 people fly in this year and connect with companies who are hiring. We're rolling out a new event for them called the Fly-In Fly-In Community Culture and Career Fair. And that's an opportunity. It's open to everybody who's attending Startup Week, but it really is an opportunity for us to share the vibrant story of culture and food and art and what a great ecosystem that we have here in Minnesota, and hopefully entice people with, unique skill sets that they want to move here, especially, if you have a family. It's such a great place to raise a family. So we're looking at really targeting people who are living in expensive coastal cities for that, to share, how much higher quality of life here is in the Midwest. And then for the beta backers, that is a matchmaking event that we do every year between local Minnesota companies who are actively fundraising and investors who are looking for their next investment. And because we're going virtual with that this year, we have a better opportunity to actually engage with coastal investors as well, that maybe wouldn't have traveled here before to meet with the companies, but because it's all on Zoom, we're excited to be bringing hopefully more dollars into the startup ecosystem through that program.
That's a big deal. I mean, we could be talking about millions of dollars.
Hopefully. That's the plan. Yeah.
And in case people missed it, like, you were a startup. That's just an amazing story. I mean, you participated in the fly-in program. Can you just give us like a quick version of that story and what kept you here? Like, why did you move here?
Yeah, so my background is managing startups and startup accelerators in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. And my husband and I were at a point in our careers and our life where we had just had a baby. And man, the Bay Area is such a grind. And I started actively looking at other places that had an active startup scene. And my husband's from Minnesota. So of course, there was some family pressure, but I didn't think that there was anything going on with startups here because I didn't know anything about it. And then it was through the fly-in program that I saw, and Startup Week, that in 2018, I was like, holy cow, look at how many events are on this calendar, how many really cool, interesting people are participating in this program. I think there's something here. And we literally, that was in October, and we packed up our bags and moved to Minnesota that December. So, I think there's something to be said about telling our story on a national stage, about getting this out there, that we have an amazing job ecosystem for people who are looking for highly paid, skilled work. We have an amazing education system. I mean, that's really what sold us, obviously, like the fact that we have such highly rated schools, that childcare is so high quality here. And of course, just being in a place that really values family and family time. We definitely weren't getting that in the Bay Area. Let's be honest, like it's a struggle to have a family there. So between just all the really great things, and I'm a total foodie, and the food is so amazing in the Twin Cities. So it didn't take much, once I knew that all these things were possible, we literally just like packed up. I technically was still working for a startup in San Francisco, and just showed up to a beta event and was like, hey, I'm looking for a job. Anybody hiring? And beta was hiring, and now I'm the executive director. So, that's just, I think, a testament to how easy it is to connect here, and how supportive the community is to bringing in fresh ideas and people with different experiences.
It's a fantastic story, and we're so glad you're here. Now helping to lead this work. I mean, there's so many great things about this community. We've been spending the last several months appropriately reflecting on what's not great and how much greater we need to be, especially where racial justice and equity and inclusion are concerned. I mean, Damola, with racial equity at the forefront of our local and national conversation, could you talk to us about what opportunities for meaningful change toward racial equity you see locally in our startup community, and maybe how that could show up in Twin Cities Startup this year?
Yeah. So, on the heels of the murder of George Floyd, late May and then going into June, the Forge North Leadership Council, which I'm a part of, started really trying to put together a plan and initiative around like, how can we go beyond just talking about racial equity, particularly as it aligns with communities of color and policing, right? Because it's more than just that. It's not just about public safety and reforming kind of the standardized police policing processes we have right now. It's about the other disparities that exist, whether it's housing or education or raising capital from an entrepreneurial perspective. And as a leader of the Twin Cities, tech startup ecosystem, and being part of a group of leaders with Forge North, we took it upon ourselves to say, okay, let's talk about all of these things, but let's also focus on the aspects and the areas that we have our core competency in, which is entrepreneurship and kind of, closing the gap on that, on the disparities that exist, and all of the things that are within there, from founders of color to that are actually starting companies, to them being able to, folks like me being able to raise money from venture capitalists, to VCs being more diverse and having a greater distribution of people that look like me involved in those funds. And we have a long way to go in the Twin Cities. And I think the first step of acknowledging that we have a long way to go is a step that we took in a very pronounced way in June. And I'm really excited about being part of a group of people that's advancing that initiative. And my goal is to make sure that we are bringing folks together, not just to talk about it. I think in the Twin Cities and across the country, a lot of talking has happened, and the goal is to move towards action, towards change. And I think with Twin Cities Startup Week, bringing people together, albeit it's going to be virtual, and which is a good thing, because I think there's going to be more people involved in those conversations. We can reach more people, but it'll be a really great opportunity to try to start planning actions with other folks too, right? And building that capacity, building that community. So it's something that I'm looking forward to. It's something that I will be talking and speaking a lot about. I think the folks that, that are in the Zoom call right now, Peter, Casey, I'm not shy about talking about things that maybe aren't often talked about. But one of the good things that has happened over the last few months is that it's being forced. The topic is being forced into conversation, and it's going to stay there as long as I'm around. It's going to stay there.
Well, we're going to do that together, and appreciate your leadership on that issue for years. And I think, we talk a lot about problem solving and, amazing products that we can create, but I guess with the lens of racial equity, this is about wealth creation, right? And this is about empowerment, right? This is a major strategy, right? To drive real change at scale. And I think that's something for us to embrace and be really explicit about. There's going to be so much happening this year at Startup Week. Casey, what are some of the tracks and signature events that we should have people looking for?
Great questions. So like you said, there's so much happening. We had more session submissions this year than we have any other year, which is really exciting. And so real quick, the tracks that we have are, as you mentioned, it's Twin Cities Startup Month because we had so much content that we really felt like it wouldn't fit into 1 week of virtual experience, knowing that people are like kind of burned out and being on their computers all day. So we're actually spreading it out over 3 weeks with tracks taking place on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Tuesday, September 8th is our sales and marketing track presented by Dynamico. Thursday, the September 10th is our founder track. Monday, September 14th is that Flying Community Culture and Career Fair we were talking about, which Greater MSP is making possible. Tuesday, September 15th is our EdTech track presented by AWS. On Thursday, September 17th, we have our healthcare track. Tuesday, September 22nd, our sustainability track presented by Northland Capital. And then we have on the 24th is food and ag track presented by Cargill. So I know that was a lot of information, but really there is something for everybody at Startup Week, whether you're an entrepreneur or just somebody who's interested in learning any more about those topics. We're going to have, again, about 200 sessions throughout the month. So you can and the good thing about it being virtual is like you can really just pop in and pop out for whichever session is interesting to you. But I think, the sessions that I'm most excited about seeing are, and this goes back to, because it's virtual, we've been able to attract talent from around the US that probably we wouldn't have been able to have attend before. So On September 17th, we have Chloe Alpert, who's the CEO of Medina's Health. And she's really interesting because she is a serial entrepreneur who saw how much waste was happening in the medical supply industry. And so now Medina's Health is taking on how are we going to disrupt this $250 billion industry? And Charles Hudson is the managing partner of Precursor Ventures, which is based in San Francisco. And he wrote them their first check, or one of their first checks. So they're going to have a fireside chat around like, how do you even get an idea to take on such a massive industry and figure out how to disrupt it and inspire an investor to be willing to write that first check. Ashton Kutcher is also one of their first investors, which is kind of exciting, but he was too busy to attend Startup Week, unfortunately. And then on September 22nd, anybody who was at Blackson Tech last year hopefully attended Elizabeth Adams' talk around AI and the Black experience. And it was so meaningful for people who were able to attend it that we invited her back to the main stage of the sustainability track for Startup Week. And so she's going to be talking to Alton Glass from GRX Immersive. And they're going to be talking about, again, AI and the Black experience, which I'm really excited about. And I think that's going to be a great session for people to attend. And then one final session I'm really excited about is Brett Broll and Mary Grove are going to be doing actually live pitch critiques on, and let's see, what day is that? I think that's part of our founder track, which is Thursday the 10th. And so they're actually going to like have founders come on, do an investor pitch, and they're going to give them feedback on the main stage. So if you ever wondered what investors wish they could say to you, but they don't, I think that's a really cool event for people to check it out. And I feel like for Damola, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like for most founders, you go into an investor meeting and the investors are like, okay, great, we'll get back to you. And that seems to be the answer. And you don't really get constructive feedback as to why or why not they're interested in investing. And so this is an opportunity to like peek behind the curtain and see what investors are actually thinking about your pitch. So I'm super excited about, these are just like 3 highlights of really cool events that we have going on. So I recommend everybody go to twincitystartupweek.com, register today, get your tickets so you don't miss out on any great content.
Yeah, so that was a lot. And so for those who weren't taking notes, we'll make sure we get some links in there so you can really see what's going on. With all of those options, I mean, Damola, are there events that you've participated in during previous years or, something you'd really encourage people to take a look at?
Yeah, I think it was like 2016 or 17 is when the tracks started, like the actual either the founder track or the student track. Like there was a bunch of different tracks. I think there were also like specific industry tracks you could take that you can take right now. And I would just take like the founder track or like the software track. And I think just finding that, like figuring out what aligns with what you're trying to learn, maybe even doing like finding multiple tracks, like some intersection there, is always like really helpful because you're able to meet new people, have conversations, build that network, that type of thing. Which to me, network building is probably one of the most important things you can do as a founder. You got to build your Rolodex. You got to build that network. You got to have people you can reach out to and learn from. And I agree with Casey. I'm really actually excited for Brett and Mary's event. The real pitch there. The Bread and Butter Ventures, their fund is an investor of ours. And to Casey's point, for folks that haven't had experience raising money before, it's going to be a really good peek at like how does the process actually work, because a lot of the time it is kind of like a bunch of questions and then a no, and you can try to take away based off of the questions like why they reached the no, but it's usually not that. It takes a lot of experience to get to that point. And then, of course, I've got to, share with everybody that's listening to this an event that my co-founder, Shantara, will be hosting called Why Every Startup Needs to Think Like a Lobbyist. And that's going to be 10:45 a.m. Thursday, September 10th. So register and attend that event on September 10th. Again, 10:45 a.m. Thursday, September 10th with Shantara Hardy, Chief Strategy Officer of Civic Eagle. why every startup needs to think like a lobbyist. I think it's going to be a really good one. But again, like I'm going to be at almost everything on this schedule every day from like the 7th to the 25th, in which there's programming. And it's exciting because it's virtual, right? Like you can actually, I have 2 monitors. I'm going to see if I can like have different events up at the same time. And then my laptop in the middle will be, maybe I'm just doing emails and stuff like that. So like, this is one of the situations where you can really have fun and try to like actually get as much information, extract as much information as possible, because the big part of this, again, like I said, networking, but then also learning. And I love learning. I love being part of the community and just getting as much information as I possibly can.
So you can be hacking the experience virtually. So, I mean, every experience with entrepreneurs does kind of trend towards a pitch. And I think that's where we are in this conversation. So to kind of wrap it up, I'd ask you both to kind of pitch, founders obviously are going to get a lot of value in participating in Startup Week, but it's really important that's not just founders get exposed to what's going on, right? And we've been having that conversation for years, and that's a really important part of Forge North. This is cultural. We want the whole region to be exposed to, not only what it takes to create a company, but why someone would create a company, and how do you support people doing this, and how to support innovation. And so we want a lot of different people to take a look at this. So, if you could each, talk about, a group of folks who are not founders and why you want them to come and why they should come.
Yeah, I can take a first stab at that. I think Damola brings up a really great point about networking and just connecting with people who have that innovative frame of mind. And whether you're a small business owner all the way to like working in marketing at Target, huge shout out to Target, Cargill, and JP Chase for being our strategic partners and making Startup Week even possible this year. But I think that the fact that they see a lot of value in sponsoring Twin Cities Startup Week tells you that, inspiration comes from many different places. And so if I'm working in marketing and I at Target and I go to learn how startups are approaching growth hacking, they're like, wow, those are some great ideas. We should like be doing that on the Target team, or vice versa. Maybe I'm a founder and learning how Target does their growth hacking. So just this transference of ideas, and then having that ability to go up to the person after their session and like have a conversation and ask them more questions. And now you've made a friend who you can, who's in the industry you're interested in. So Damola, you'll be happy to know that there's tons of networking opportunities at Startup Week this year. The platform we chose called Hopin, we chose because it's video first, and there's like 8 different ways to network. The most popular one right now is the networking feature, which is like networking roulette. And you literally get matched with random people who are attending Startup Week, and you just have 5 minutes to have a conversation, and then it cuts you off and sends you into the next networking roulette. So, trying to create these organic, spontaneous connections that really people walk away saying that is the best thing they get out of Startup Week, is the friends and the connections that they make. So we made sure that we're putting that first and center in the way that we're presenting Startup Week this year. So everybody should come.
Okay, so Casey says everybody. Damola, you get the last word on this.
Folks that work in corporate America, if you're at one of those big companies in Minnesota, or I mean, really anywhere, right? This is a virtual event. This is a great space for you to see what the brightest, newest ideas are, how folks are innovating your industry, your space. It's a great learning opportunity for folks that work in corporate America, particularly in innovation or in technology. And that's really important, right? Like you don't want to be, as a corporate leader, you don't want to especially if you're working in a space that is technology first, which most companies now are. The last thing you want to do is miss out on the ability to innovate your space and find kind of products and tools and ways of thinking and ideas that are coming into your industry. So definitely encourage folks that work at some of the bigger corporations and all corporations really in Minnesota, but also nationally to attend, because there's a great opportunity there for you too. Fantastic. I think if anyone has any inkling, they should absolutely check it out because it's free. There's a ton of different things to see and learn. And, in a time of change, we all have a lot to learn from entrepreneurs and their way of thinking about how to take a really ambitious, crazy idea and find a way to make it work.
So I think that's where we're all at. So thanks to you both for taking the time to have this conversation, for everything you're doing to drive our innovation community right now.
Great. Thanks for your support, Peter.
Thanks for having us.
All right.